that little church had this big cross over the altar that was backlit, and it was always lit. And I would go out there at night, and I would lay on the floor under that cross, and I would just beg God to please, I can't stop being gay. I can't change how I feel. If this is wrong, if this is what you don't want, then you have to change it, because I can't. And nothing ever changed.
Being a homosexual and a lesbian is a ticket to hell.
We ignore both in the Bible about all sorts of things.
He sat with them. You're a stupid motherfucker. You turn into something like... Who's a bitch for you to judge me? Wicked and rough. I'm a born-again Christian. That's what I am.
The second you see your son dropping the limp wrist, you walk over there and crack that wrist. Man up. Give him a good punch.
Homosexuality is abnormal, it's against nature, it's shameful, it's vile, it's wicked.
It's simply God's fixed determination to punish the wicked in hell for their sins, because he can.
Ever since I can remember, way before I knew what sex was, I had an attraction to the same gender.
From the time I was in elementary school, I began to experience feelings for other boys. And then in middle school and high school, my friends were being attracted to girls, but I was being attracted to them.
It's not so much that one day I realized, oh my goodness, I'm a lesbian. And then, I thought, okay, well, maybe I'd better get myself a girlfriend. It was that, I had a best friend who, we could finish each other's sentences, we could talk for hours. And then eventually that became a sexualized relationship.
When I first figured out that what I was feeling was what people call homosexuality was about 15 years ago. So I was about 14 years old. I remember being like, oh, so I'm what they call gay, and I didn't really know what to do with that, honestly.
Even one of my best friend's dads was a psychiatrist, and he told me it was a phase and I would go through it. Somehow I knew this wasn't just a phase, and
my dad was an alcoholic, and he physically abused me. My mom and I were very close, and I had one sister.
My mother and I were like ice toward each other, so there was no real connection there.
I grew up Catholic. Again, hearing the story of conversion from my parents, they also gave me a very good Catholic education in many ways. All of that was an effort on the part of my parents to sort of give me the best that they could.
I grew up in an environment feeling unwanted. My mom used to say things like, I wish you were never born to me. I felt very depressed and very suicidal when I was growing up.
I was this very sensitive artist. I loved to sing, I was a dancer, and my father was like, whoa, because he was a baseball team coach. And he worked with the Little League for my whole childhood. And I tried to relate, but it just wasn't for me.
My dad was very talented at working on cars and landscaping. He would try to teach me, but every time he would try, it never failed. He would lose patience and go into a rage, screaming and hollering and calling me names and swearing. He also really wasn't into sports, so he never really taught me how to throw or hit. And at school, my male peers made it very clear that I was not like them, that I didn't belong. And I'm sharing this so you can see that everything associated with masculinity scared me, terrified me. I hated it.
And I grew up hating men. I had been molested as a child. And in my mind, men were just vicious brutes who just only wanted one thing from you. And I wanted nothing to do with them.
You have to understand that for women especially, it's very often not so much a matter of strong physical attractions to one gender or to the other gender. It's a matter of how you emotionally interact with people.
Because I always had a hard time bonding with boys my own age. I was much more sensitive, much more artistic and creative. And so it was natural for me to actually focus on hanging out with the girls because those were the activities the girls were doing.
My parents had sent me to a psychologist at around the age of 12 because I guess I used to be somewhat effeminate. And they were worried, like, oh my gosh, he's going to be gay. That was a miserable experience, honestly, because I had the idea that there was just something horribly wrong with me, that I was like abnormal in some way. They didn't say this, but that was the message that came through to me.
Some of the self-talk that I used to say when I was very young was, if only I looked like him, if only I was athletic like him, if only I was strong like him, if only I could play football like him, then maybe I would fit in, maybe I would belong, maybe I wouldn't be so alone and different. There was such an intense shame and loneliness associated with that longing to fit in.
I was so desperate for somebody to give me some attention and some physical affection, and I needed somebody just to let me know that I existed and that I was okay.
When I became a teenager, this attraction became sexualized, and it brought me so much turmoil. I felt completely alone. I felt like a freak. I was teased, made fun of for throwing and like a girl, but it went beyond that. I would be in the classroom and there would be people behind me hitting my head during class going, fag, faggot, fag. I hated high school. In 9th grade, I had to take gym. I didn't want any part of that locker room. I was so terrified that someone would find out that I was one of them, a fag. So I had to force myself to participate. But I refused to take a shower. I just changed my shorts. I didn't care if I stunk. I was so afraid. By this time, I believed that I was gay.
I think the bullying really caused me to go deeper into the sexual acting out because I needed relief. I needed to help find some kind of source to help kill the pain. And I wasn't definitely getting that from people necessarily in the church because I didn't feel like I could talk to them about that.
I ended up getting involved in a Pentecostal church, and they told me being gay was wrong. You couldn't be homosexual. And I believed them, and I left the gay lifestyle for 6 or 7 years. But they also told me that I had to be heterosexual. to be okay. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't.
From the church, you hear either nothing or that's gross, and from the secular media, you start to feel this embrace, this support, this let's go out and find these people and help them. Wow, like it's no wonder that so many people leave, right?
When everything hit me emotionally and I just was falling apart, and I needed human caring from somewhere. And the only place that I could see at the time that it was going to come from was back in the gay lifestyle. Because with a man, no way, you know, and friends can only be so close. So I ended up falling back into the gay lifestyle.
My same-sex attractions were definitely hidden from almost everyone in my life. I really couldn't talk to my family about that. So who would I go to? Well, I would go to the guys that I was having sex with. That was really my only way that I knew to kind of make myself feel better.
Not having anybody to talk that through with was extraordinarily lonely. I remember wanting to talk to somebody about this, but being terrified, obviously. Maybe not so obviously. But one of the things I did was to go into a gay chat room online.
I couldn't wait till I was 18. Because the moment I would turn 18, I was going to go to my first gay bar, and I did. In fact, it was that very weekend after I turned 18. And I walked into that first gay bar, and it was exhilarating at first. I felt like I finally wasn't alone. There were other people like me.
So I left the straight bar and went directly to a gay bar, because at least there I knew that men would accept me, they would understand me, and give me the attention, the affection, the affirmation, and acceptance that I needed.
But that feeling did not last long. In fact, the depression continued to worsen. And I turned deeper to alcohol and drugs to numb the pain, as well as sex.
I spent 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 years in kind of that spot where there was nobody to talk to about this. And honestly, where just these feelings could grow. And I don't mean just like the sexual feelings. I mean, what to me is more important, this belief that I wasn't acceptable and that there was something terribly wrong with me, and that I had to keep this part of myself secret so nobody could really know me, all this stuff. That really took root. I heard my dad say once, oh, like, I wish they'd just moved to another planet, meaning like the gays. What I do remember is being super lonely, not really having anyone to talk to about that stuff, and finding these men's health magazines.
I masturbated a lot to bodybuilding magazines because that was the image, that was the ideal image that I thought a man looked like. So I would masturbate to those images, not knowing that really what was going on inside of me is that I didn't feel like a man at all. So my wanting to connect and bond with men that should have been done when I was 10, 11, 12, those needs were never met. So the homo-emotional needs became homosexualized.
Eventually, you start to wonder, okay, why am I looking at these things? Why do I have these reactions? And why do I have this like sense of shame about it? Why is this something secret?
Went to college and I came out, and I had a male partner for 3 years.
I said, okay, I'll start with a bisexual label, which is a very common thing for people to do. And then I thought, this is silly. I don't actually relate well with men. I should just say lesbian, that's more honest.
I was the president of Gays and Lesbians United in Toledo. I used to write for the gay newsletter. I pretty much ran the gay church.
I had a boyfriend at the time. I broke up with him because I told him, look, this is not going to work out with me because 1, I'm a Christian, and 2, I just don't really feel this is who I am at my core. But it was very painful because I wanted the affection, I wanted the attention, I wanted the acceptance and affirmation that he was giving me, but he also wanted the sex. And so I was confused because society was telling me, oh, this is what it means to be gay.
The gay churches that I was attending had Catholic deacons and nuns who were there telling us all that you could keep on being a practicing sexual homosexual, you're fine.
I felt extremely depressed living in this life. The depression was overwhelming. The loneliness was overwhelming.
And so I did what I really had to do, which was I struggled for many years, and I had sexual relationships with guys. I also had sexual relationships with girls. I really was stuck in the middle of not being able to connect with men, not being able to have a healthy relationship with women, and I really needed to experience healing in my life.
Then one day when I was 24, my sister, my only sibling who I was very close to, died of a heart attack at age 21. After I grieved my grief, I was forced to look at my own mortality, and I thought it should have been me. I was the one slowly killing myself.
I was just so lost and so broken. And I knew that I needed God. And I knew that the Catholic Church was the right church. And there was something there that I knew I didn't have. I just hadn't been very faithful all those years.
Then I realized that I needed to really get to know who God is. That he's not there to replace the emotional highs. There's gotta be something more.
The first time I ever actually told anybody about this, all of this, was in confession. And instead of just kind of brushing past it, he actually said, "Oh, well, do you want to talk about that?" And I was like, "Yeah, please, I do." You know, I was not in the habit of talking about anything that was important to me. He made himself available to me in a way that nobody else ever has. He was very truly a father to me, and continues to be one. I can't even, there's nothing I could ever do to ever repay him for that.
I was born and raised Jewish, and my partner was Catholic, and he loved this Jesus guy. And at first I persecuted my boyfriend, saying, stop it, all this Jesus stuff. But finally he said, "Stop it, Richard. You believe what you want to believe and let me believe what I believe." And I realized, wow, I was wrong, and I apologized to him. And because I loved my partner, I wanted to find out why he loved this Jesus guy.
I knew that if I became a Catholic, the homosexuality thing was going to have to go. And I told God I was okay with that because I was falling in love with my Creator. And my identity and relationship to God just seemed more important than my identity and relationship to my girlfriend.
After studying God's Word, my boyfriend and I, we realized, we're not supposed to be doing what we're doing. So we stopped the physical part of our relationship, and eventually we broke up.
So I focused on building a strong foundation on God. And amazing things happened. I stopped sex, I stopped alcohol, I stopped drugs, and I verbally forgave my dad. I made some really good Catholic male friends. They taught me how to throw, how to hit, how to catch, and I began to like who I was.
I realized that no, I can have all the affection, all the attention, all the acceptance and affirmation from straight men, and that's been my healing process.
I found hope. Hope that comes from God.
The one unmistakable source of Christ's love that came to me. The one unmistakable source of acceptance and healing has always been through the church and her ministers.
There was never peace. There was never true joy. There was never happiness anywhere that I went in the world until I came to the Catholic Church.
Most of the things I heard about homosexuality were not from the church. I knew what was prohibited. I knew that there wasn't a future for me with, like, being married to a man or something. I didn't know why it was prohibited. It seemed arbitrary and cruel, as it still seems to a lot of people.
To anyone who experiences heterosexual feelings, it feels natural. And for a man or woman who experiences SSA or same-sex attraction, it feels natural.
I think you have to distinguish between two elements of same-sex attraction. There's the natural, good attraction that human beings feel towards other human beings. And this can be emotional. All of these things are perfectly ordered. The only thing that the church says is disordered is when this becomes sexual desire.
The act outside of marriage, whether it's for heterosexuals or those with same-sex attraction, is a sin.
The reason the church does not condone homosexual acts is the same reason that the church doesn't condone contraceptive sex. It's like that's not what sex is for.
Because one flesh is what God originally created. A man shall leave his mother and father and cleave unto his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And two male bodies can't recreate this. Two female bodies can't recreate this. Only a male and a female.
So when the church says that same-sex attraction is inherently disordered, what they're saying is that desire can't be fulfilled according to the design of our bodies.
I think a lot of people, when they see in the Catechism of the Catholic Church that a same-sex attraction is considered disordered, they feel like that's very harsh language or that it's a judgment. And actually, it's not.
I mean, how many of us have told a lie? Well, that's a disordered attraction. And how many of us have seen a member of same-sex or opposite sex and lusted over them in our hearts and our minds and in our actions? That's a disorder.
And one of the Eucharistic prayers of the Catholic Mass talks about asking God to help heal our disordered desires and affections for the universal church. This goes for everybody from Pope Francis all the way down.
This is not saying, homosexuals are bad or they're somehow worse or more in need of saving.
All of us are in the exact same boat. Every human being, regardless of what you actually desire, you're made for more than you might desire right now.
Original sin for all of us, for every human being on the planet, has disoriented our desires. We often find ourselves hungry for things that don't satisfy the ache, don't satisfy the need.
The church is not saying that the desire is a sin. See, actions are sins, desires are not.
Because you can't be charged with a sin for something you didn't choose, something you can't be in control of. But once we have these attractions to whatever, then I need to choose how I behave.
What do we do when we find desires in us that are not in keeping with the design for human flourishing? Well, if we want to flourish, we need to learn how to say no to a desire that would take me away from true flourishing so I can say yes to that which leads to authentic flourishing.
So those with same-sex attraction aren't being asked to do anything different than a heterosexual. We're all called to chastity, every single one of us.
Chastity is the virtue that orients our sexual desires according to God's design so we can reach our destiny.
It's not about saying no to pleasure and no to herpes and then no to hell, you know? It's really about saying yes to one really important thing. Yes to authentic love.
The chaste person is not the asexual person. The chaste person is somebody who knows what to do with their sexuality.
Everyone is called to chastity, not as a repression of desire, but as an inner transformation and redemption of desire according to God's design, so we can reach our destiny.
When the church invites people, that we're not inviting them to a life of emptiness and loneliness. We're inviting them to fully actualize themselves by living out God's plan. Real fulfillment in life isn't achieved by having sex and being sexually active. Real fulfillment in life is reached through love, and love is doing what's right.
And so if you're a man and you're attracted to another man, the question is, what is best for my beloved? What is best for this man I love? Because God and the church and Jesus Christ and the Gospels are not forbidding me to love me, they're commanding me to love him. So how do I do that? Maybe it's through sacrifice. Maybe it's through intercession. Maybe it's through prayer. Maybe it's through purity.
Living according to the natural law means humbly submitting to the design of the Creator and saying, this is the way I am going to choose to live my life. Even if internally, I have to fight against impulses and desires that want to take me in a different direction. I humble myself. I say, there's a bigger plan, there's a bigger reality, and I submit myself to it.
And when the church invites people with same-sex attraction to do something really difficult, to follow God in their state of life, and man, people who are doing that, they're heroes.
And I think a lot of these same-sex relationships can be true, solid, good friendships, because nobody can live without intimacy. We all need intimacy in our lives. Intimacy, unfortunately, has come to mean sex. It's synonymous with sex, and it's not. It means into-me-see. We want to be known and loved at our deepest levels, and we want to know and love others at their deepest levels. So we can have lots of sex and no intimacy. We can have lots of intimacy without sex.
We also need to understand that for people who have chosen to live chastity, one of the biggest obstacles is isolation and loneliness. The church has to function as family and as community, and it has to do so in a way that is more powerful and more real than the family and community that people find in the gay scene. At the moment, we're not anywhere near that.
I mean, a large part of the alienation I felt was just what homosexuality was in sort of like widespread Catholic culture. You know, kind of like mean jokes got said about it. Or not mean because, well, nobody we know is actually like that, so we wouldn't talk like that if any of us were like that, but of course, you know, I'm sitting right there.
And sometimes it would be hard sitting there, you know, when the subject of those evil homosexuals would come up, you know, and I would just want so badly to just jump up and yell at them, you know. I'm not what you think gay people are, but I couldn't say anything.
There's this sense that, well, if I do, then they're not going to see me anymore. They're going to see this label. They're going to identify me with the enemy in some way.
Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who've had negative experiences. Usually it's with people who have grasped the law, but who have not grasped the teaching that a homosexual is a person.
You know, Christianity in general is in a position where we need to start asking forgiveness for those people who have been bigoted to those who have these attractions, whether it be their own family members, whether it be their pastors, kids in their youth groups. Like, we need to say, I'm sorry. Some of these people have suffered a lot, and that's their notion of the Catholic Church. Maybe that's all they know of the church. You know, I admit, I went to an all-guys high school, and I confess I took part in it. You know, this, you know, you're gay, no, you're gay, you're gay. Just this stupid behavior. And I ask forgiveness on behalf of the entire community of people who experience these attractions, that you've experienced any of this stuff. From people who claim to be Christian like me, claim to be Catholic. I did it.
The church makes it very, very clear. It says all men and women who experience same-sex attraction must be treated with compassion, dignity, respect. And every sign of unjust discrimination in their regard must be avoided. If when it comes to any kind of bullying, any kind of unjust discrimination, when it comes to anything like that, that's actually condemned by the church. The church condemns that and says that is an evil thing to do.
The Catholic Church loves all people. And yes, that includes people with same-sex attraction.
I think what's in people's consciousness is, as we all know, that horrific church that goes around with the God hates fags signs.
No, like God hates your sign. Go burn your sign. That's what he hates.
Yes, homosexual acts are a sin. Yes, there are people who live in sin in that way. But how did Jesus treat people who lived in sin? He spoke to them like normal human beings.
The church should be the safest place on earth. That's where we need to. That's what Jesus did. He just received without judgment. And he just showed unconditional love.
But there's two camps basically. There's those that say you're going to hell. God hates homosexuals. And then there's people who say, over on this extreme, oh, you can just live an active gay life. God loves everybody. It's okay. He wants you to love too. But there's another camp.
The Catholic Church puts forth a third way to treat every person, but in this case, particularly persons with same-sex attraction, to be able to say, we do not in any way hate or condemn or fear or want to isolate you. At the same time, you can't embrace everything that you choose. So we're going to choose this third way, and that third way is love. We're going to love you.
I find so much comfort in the church's teaching regarding same-sex attraction because it tells me that the Lord loves me. I can live, and I do live, a fulfilling, chaste life.
My whole life I would cry and beg God, please make me good. I don't want to be evil. That drove me to search and search and search. And I just wanted what was the truth. Don't tell me nice lies. I just want what is the truth. And if you're seeking truth and you refuse to be satisfied with anything but truth, then you're going to end up in the Catholic Church because that's where truth lies.
If I hadn't had this very clear, very obvious doctrine in front of me, if I hadn't understood as a Catholic that it was inerrant, then I don't know where I'd be today.
I sought all my life for love. That's what I was really looking for in all my acting out. Now I experience true, authentic love.
If the church will never stop saying anything, it will never stop saying, we love you.
The church opens wide her doors to the whole human race and says, come. Come all of you who are thirsty. Come all of you who are hungry. Come to the waters of life. Come to the bread of life.
Catholic Church holds out to you the hope and the reality that you don't have to wait till you die to become a saint. You can live a saintly, holy life now here on earth.
And so we're calling those people who do experience same-sex attractions to love through purity and through sacrifice. Not a life of desolation, but a life of deep union with Christ and with the church. Because those people who have these attractions, they belong in the Catholic Church. This is their home.
You belong here with us. You can share with us your struggle. You can share with us your attraction. And we're still going to love you.
I know that I am a Catholic man. That's my identity. I used to think I was gay. I'm not gay. I am David, a Catholic man.
Sure that we make it far enough to look back and laugh when times were rough. No fear, no doubt, no worry when you gave me your heart. Remember then when you said you loved me now. We were sure that the rest would all work out. We took it slow, no rush, no hurry when you gave me your heart. But I want more than just a fleeting emotion. I want more than just you feeling the same. So give me everything, and I'll drop anchor in your heart and fall asleep in your arms. So give me everything, 'cause life's too short to live alone. So be the one that keeps me warm at night. We thought our love was enough to stand the storm. We've seen it all and we stood the rain before. Was there a calm in your soul when you told me you gave me your heart? But I want more than just a fleeting emotion. I want more than just you feeling the same. So give me everything, and I'll drop anchor in your heart and fall asleep in your arms. So give me everything, 'cause life's too short to live alone. So be the one that keeps me warm